Good evening. I'd like to call to order a special town council meeting budget workshop for April 14th. We'll begin by rising for a moment of silence. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Fishbein.
Here.
Laffin.
Here.
Letourneau.
Here.
Mansfield. Here. Parisi.
Here.
Russo.
Here.
Sullivan. Testa.
Here.
Chairman Cervoni.
Here. On to the budget workshops. We'll start with the Economic Development Commission. For those of you following along in your budget books, it's page 60. Good evening. If you could just remind us who you are for those out there in TV land.
Good evening. I'm Joe Mira, Chairman of the EDC. With me tonight is our commission, Dick Nunn, Tom Collette, Mark Gingrich, Jim Wolf, Don Rowe from staff, and Tim Ryan from staff. I'd like to turn it over to Don Rowe right now.
You got to talk into the mic, Joe.
Testing. Thanks, Tom. I'd like to start a little differently tonight. And by that I mean I'd really like to introduce Tim Ryan, who joined our staff in January, taking over the part-time position that was vacated when Doreen DeZaro retired. Many of you, no doubt, know Mr. Ryan. And after, a lifetime of employment in the private sector, he now finds himself working in the public sector. Given that, and given that it's been approximately 100 days that he's been on the job, I asked him whether he would be willing to offer just sort of remarks of the experience to date, what the work looks like, what things look like, based on, again, his first 100 days in that office. So without any further ado, Tim.
Very good. Thank you, Don. Good evening. I can't begin to tell you how thrilled I am to have the opportunity to work in the role that I'm working. This is a great community, a great town. I've grown up here. My wife has grown up here. We've raised our daughters here, and now we have grandchildren being raised in Wallingford. So I'd like to think we know a few things about Wallingford, and we've seen it evolve and continue to be a great place to live. When I was first being interviewed by Don and the commission, they made it very clear to me that they were looking for someone who could look at things from a business's perspective, as opposed to a seasoned economic development professional that may not have the same views as from the business side of things. I assure you I can see things very clearly from the business side of things. I have been involved in my professional life in business acquisitions, in strategic growth plans, and I've dealt with the realities of having to take and restructure businesses. It's not always pleasant, but there's a lot of activity out there. Wallingford has got a great brand. It's a great place to do business, and my job is to make sure we continue to spread the word and bring people to the community. So when I was talking again, Don and the commission, I just felt that they were very forward-thinking in that they would invite someone like myself in and allow me to take and learn the economic development profession, but bring the business acumen to the table. So I have committed myself to them, as I will to you, that I will learn and become a good, sound, and solid economic development professional as we continue to try to make ourselves attractive to new businesses. I will tell you that I have found everybody in Town Hall very embracing to date. Those of you that know me know that I am not shy. If I have a situation that I cannot address, I bring it to the professionals in Town Hall that can. I've met a number of times with Casey Costello. I have brought clients in, and we've gone down and sat with Casey. She's been very gracious about the use of her time. I had a company in a couple of weeks ago looking to relocate to Wallingford that started asking me some tax questions that I was not in a position to answer. So we got Shelby Jackson on the phone. Shelby opened the door and said, "Come on down." We were in his office 10 minutes later and spent the next hour developing the relationship between that business and Shelby, so that, and they exchanged information so that they can go directly to the tax assessor for information. I'm working on a project right now with John Thompson in engineering. I've been in Barbara Thompson's office probably a few too many times, but Barbara also is extremely gracious. So, you know, we've got a good seasoned group of professionals here that my job is to, as I see it, is to bring people to the door, get them in the door, and then let these people do what they do best. And we work collaboratively and collectively to cut through red tape and make it as simple as possible for businesses. Again, our brand is so strong that you know, we don't have to necessarily, you know, take a knee to any business if we don't want the business. I mean, I think we're in a position where we can be selective, very, very deliberate, very purposeful in who it is we're talking to and who it is we try to welcome to our community. So I just want to thank Don and the commission for giving me the opportunity, and I will say to you what I said to Don the day he hired me, and it's the same thing I said to the people who hired me 37 years ago, and that is, I won't let you down. We'll work hard, and we'll get the job done. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe?
Sure. As many of you who have been sitting on the council know, the commission works in 3-year cycles. We develop a marketing plan for a 3-year program. Moving into next fiscal year, we'll be taking up our second year of our marketing program, which had as its initiative the Plug into Wallingford theme and logo. We're going to continue to work with that logo with a lot of collateral pieces. Again, that's something we're actually starting to work on in this fiscal year, getting ready for next. The budget that was submitted to you is very similar to the budget that was submitted and approved last year. The one big difference that you will see as a capital item, one of the highways, we have done 2 highway signs, those on I-91, and we were looking to do the 3rd highway sign, but the combination of age and weather took it out of play. So it requires a completely from the ground up, or in the ground up, you know, structure. That pretty much in a nutshell is where, you know, the budget, what the budget looks like. It also includes continued membership in our regional economic development organization called REX. It's through REX that we look to do out-of-state trade shows and meetings with site selectors. Site selectors, for those that are new on the council, are a group of professionals that specialize in finding sites for companies. There are some very big international organizations that do that, and then there are smaller, more regional. I think the cover letter that went to the mayor also adds some additional information about some of the things that we'll be doing next year. I think that's it for me at this point.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan touched on some nice topics. You know, I think when you tell the council that we have a great brand, we would all agree with you. When you say that, you're really, truly preaching to the choir. I think if we didn't agree, we wouldn't be sitting up here. I'm just wondering, do you have any idea how our commercial vacancy rates compare to other municipalities in Connecticut?
I didn't catch the question.
Do you have any idea how our commercial vacancy rates, vacancies in commercial properties, how ours compare to other municipalities in Connecticut?
The answer is not in terms of solid numbers or data that exist in terms of square footage. But I have occasion to visit a lot of other communities, and you know, I can tell you that our vacancy rate in comparison is a lot lower. In fact, brokers right now are complaining about not having enough inventory. I think Tim can bear that out. It's a constant. You know, one of his first jobs was actually meeting with, you know, the 10 or 12 brokers that do most of the, you know, commercial activity in our town. And it was a repeated theme, you know, in those conversations.
The reason why I asked that question is in this morning's Record Journal, there was an article about an increase in water rates. And one of the things we hear is that water consumption's going down, electricity's going down, and because we have to maintain services, we have to maintain a certain number of jobs, we have to maintain an infrastructure irrespective of the amount we sell, that we have to absorb that through rate increases. So I wonder, you know, how we compare to others if the amount of consumption in business, particularly, I mean, those are typically the biggest users, not necessarily the residents, but some of the commercial industrial areas. So that's why I asked the question. It was fresh in my mind.
Well, I think I would say two things. One is that, you know, the decline in water sales or the flatness in water sales is not something that just has fallen out of the sky. That's been there, you know, for quite some time. And actually, as a result of that, you know, Mr. Dan, you know, has identified to the EDC his interest in securing us, you know, soliciting larger water users. And indeed, that is, you know, one of those classes of customers that we do, you know, we look for.
Thank you.
I could also address it from a different angle. If you look back at our grand list over the last 7 years, especially during the recession, if you look at the grand list, Wallingford grew in both industry and commercial businesses when everyone else was losing business. So, you know, it's Wallingford, as we all know, it's there, it's growing. But Tim has some current information that he'd like to share with you.
Yeah, just to address that and to some degree reiterate what Don had said, that the brokers that I have met with share with me that, again, Wallingford's brand, its image is very important. They see Wallingford as a place that's relatively easy to do business and bring businesses into, which is good. We have one of the lowest vacancy rates around. 27% is the statistic that was shared with me by the brokers, when upwards of 40 to 45% in some of our neighboring communities is a real number. So we're doing not just a little bit better, but significantly better. When I was talking about other department heads that I've met with in town hall, I did not mention Roger Adair, and I've worked with him on a number of occasions already, and he's made it very clear to me as to what type of customer he's looking for, and we've tag teamed on a couple of initiatives already. So, you know, rest assured there's coordination between and communication between the departments as to what we're looking for.
Thank you. Councilor Fishbein?
Well, good evening to everyone, and especially to Tim. You know, every once in a while, I open the newspaper and I see something that makes me happy. And then that's how I found out that Tim was going to be part of our team, and I'm very happy about that. And it's nice to see you here tonight, and with that, I have a question for you. In your 100 days working for the town in your capacity, if you were to have a magic wand, what would you ask for?
I'd ask for Wallington to be located in a different state.
Oh, my God. I'm going to tell you that.
He works for me, remember?
I'm going to tell you that I asked Don Rowe the same exact question 2 years ago, and he gave me the same exact answer. But given that Wallingford can't be located in another state until we secede, is there anything else that you would look for to help your job go better?
Yes, and I would say that, I am a student of structure. I respect rules, regulations, guidelines. They need to exist in any type of a civilized and organized, entity. At the same time, I would ask that when certain opportunities come down the road, we should take a look and make certain that the rules and regulations that are in place are still pertinent and still important. We need to have, and we do have this strategic outlook as to what we want where, but there may be, and I'm suggesting, I guess, kind of tongue-in-cheek, that there has been, we have been approached by a company who would have liked to relocate here, but zoning regulations being what they are, and again, I'm not being critical. All I'm saying is that I think we always have to look at things with a fresh set of eyes. Let's question what is, let's be deliberate, let's be purposeful about what it is we determine. If the rule is the rule, fine. But if we revisit it and we say, maybe we ought to think about changing it, tweaking it, amending it, then I would hope for open minds when it comes to that type of
Okay.
opportunity.
That is something with the planning and zoning that I have been thinking about. There's something that some towns are doing called concurrent applications, where an entity will come before inland wetlands planning and zoning at the same time, so they don't have to wait all that time. So I'm glad to hear that. But on the money side, if we were to give you more money, let's say, what would you do with it?
It may be a little bit early for me to answer that question.
Okay.
But I will assure you that a year from now, I won't be shy about asking for more if I need it. And this is where Don and I work in concert. I really, as I mentioned earlier, deliberate, purposeful, and we need to do things that are measurable. We need to be able to understand what the outcomes are of the dollars that we spend. The mayor runs a very tight ship, and we respect the fact that he does, but that it will. If we need, or if it is recommended that we go out and spend money, go on site visits to bring people from distances afar, make sure that our reach is more broad or broader than it is now. I won't let the fact that there's no money in the budget stop me from addressing it with our commission and saying, hey, I really think we ought to be moving in this direction.
Well, I thank you for that. And the reason why I say that is I can't tell you how against billboards on 91 I am. I think that they are an absolute waste. The ones that we have, and to spend another $10,000 to establish another one. I've had that position from the beginning. I don't think any of you can tell me anyone that's come to this town and opened a business because they saw a billboard on 91. Yes, Joe.
I can tell you, I attend a lot of meetings outside of town, and I can tell you 2 senior executives from other companies have noticed that billboard and made mention to me. So,
Oh, I notice it.
well, they've made mention in a positive way. And backing up to planning and zoning, I'm on the planning and zoning subcommittee, and I have to tell you, they are very comfortable working with us to make businesses comfortable in this town.
Oh, I know that. I think concurrent applications is something that we should be looking at. And
That won't be a problem either.
I'll be doing certain things with regard to that. But I just, spending $10,000 on a billboard on 91, I would like to see some backup as to why that is a justified expense. I would so much rather see Tim at some convention in Saratoga getting us businesses than a billboard, with a lightning bolt. it just, I don't think it does anything.
I appreciate your opinion, but I have to tell you that Billboard is out there working 24/7 all year long for us, and it's making an impact. When you're in marketing, if there was one bullet that made it happen, everybody would be using it, but it's a combination. It's a combination of staffing yourself with the right people and getting exposed to the public, and 91 is a big resource.
And the traffic is supposedly driven to the URL plug into Wallingford.
It's a reinforcement, if nothing else.
Well, do we have any sort of backup as to how many clicks, other than mine from yesterday?
Well, there was 2 yesterday. but no.
Yeah,
Okay.
in the monthly report that's attached to the minutes of the EDC will give you that information on a monthly basis, okay?
It's in, okay, I was
Right.
just looking at your minutes today, I didn't see that, okay.
Yeah, it's in the monthly report that's attached to the minutes,
I'll look, okay.
okay?
On the
you.
last
That's-
page,
you know,
the last page, it's a little
we-
box.
And certainly, you know, we could compile it so that it's a little more obvious and do it a little differently maybe, so you would see it.
I did express
It's a
an
lot more
objection when you originally set this thing up, and I
The
continue
level
with
of
it.
activity on the EDC pages amazes me. There's a lot more activity there than I would have thought.
The only other thing I had was Rex. Seems to be hidden in the dues and fees line.
Yes,
And how much is the membership to Rex?
I think it's, I want to give it to you exactly. $13,541,
Okay, so it's almost that whole line.
yes.
And I think we talked about this, because last year was the first year in Rex?
Last year was our second year.
Okay, so it was 2
So
years.
this current year is our second year.
Okay. So I had asked you about Rex, and I was against it, didn't see any fruit from the tree, and I was told that I would get some sort of backup as to why this is a good expense for us. Because once again, if I take 10 grand and I take 13, I got 23. It's a lot of money for economic development. I don't know that Rex is of any, because it's other municipalities also. So I didn't get anything with this budget, and I'd certainly welcome, we got plenty of time before we're going to adopt a budget. I'd like to see what justification there is in the 2 years of experience for re-engaging in Rex. But thank you with that, Mr. Chairman. I defer.
Thank you. Up next is Councilor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Tim, welcome aboard. We've known each other a long time. Happy to see you back. I'm surprised to hear Councilor Fishbein talk about billboards, because he's certainly got his share at Vinnie's when the king of roast beef takes his poster down every 2 years and he gets his votes. He was the high vote getter, so I think he did pretty well on a billboard. So I was surprised to hear that. Don, as I look at your budget, I've always been a proponent of putting more money aside for the Economic Development Commission. And I know it's difficult to do. To Tim's point, the mayor is somewhat frugal on pieces of the budget, and this is one of them. But you are really the linchpin to the future of the town. That's the way I see it. We need to raise revenues to eliminate the burden on the taxpayers and the homeowners. And the way to do that is through businesses and recruiting business to town. And so that's why I think you're the linchpin. I would really like to see your budget doubled, if not tripled. 63% or so of your budget right now I see is going to promotion and marketing, about that. But in my opinion, this department is very important to the town of Wallingford. You're out there bringing new resources to the town. That means employment opportunities. That means increasing the tax base. That means a little break to the taxpayers. So, Tim, it's probably early, but at some point down the road, I hope if you need more money, you'll come to us, whether it's at budget time or before budget time with your team. honestly, I think you're underfunded. I've said it in years past. I still feel the same way. I think you folks have a lot to bring to the table, and it really is the key to helping all of our taxpayers in town and getting that burden off the homeowners and shifting it to businesses. So with that, I'll say welcome. I'm glad you're here, and you have a great team in front of you. I know all these guys, and I see Mr. Nunn in the back. I have a great deal of respect for the EDC. They've done tremendous work. I'm all for the billboard, Don, if you're taking a survey, because I see the billboards. The 10,000 that I see, Don, for the Parkway sign, was that a sign that was up, or is that a new sign?
This would be a totally brand-new sign. The combination of age and the weather just basically destroyed the old sign.
What are they wooden signs, Don, or are they?
Well, we've had good fortune. We've used wooden posts that have been generally provided by the electric division, or, you know, they're 6x6 post, weather-treated post. You know, it was there, you know, the better part of 25 years, you know, and the other problem is, you know, with the particular site it was located at was the tree growth, all right? When you put a sign in place, you know, and you watch what happens over 25 years, those little scrub pines grow up. And the owner of the property was unwilling to have us remove the trees. So it was already at a point where it was not as visible as we'd like it to have been.
Was that on the northbound side of the Parkway?
Southbound side.
Southbound side.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's too bad, because I really do think you get a lot of leverage from these billboards. And I know Meriden's just put one up by Nessing Fields there off of I-91,
Yeah.
a big bright one, and they're using it to their advantage. So, but kudos. I think you guys do a good job. I really do. I wish I could give you more money. I really do. I think you'd spend it wisely. But that's all I really have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. I echo Councilor Sullivan's comments. If we did an internal rate of return on what you're bringing to the town and how much we're spending, we're really economizing on the wrong side of the budget. I think that what you're doing with very limited marketing dollars, I would echo that we should really, from a priority standpoint, be super funding this, because there is no greater opportunity and an asset that we have in looking at our corporate mix and the percentage of businesses that we have here. Mr. Ryan, I hope that you come to us asking for that next year, because looking at this and looking at the marketing opportunities that are out there and the competition across the state lines for business, I know they're hungry too. And you're only going to see that increase in terms of the pressures that other states are funding their side of the economic development. So I can't think of any better investment of our dollars than looking at your team. Really. So my question is, so I would advocate that you're doing a great job, and it's eye-opening to see exactly how much you're getting in this. However, I just had a few questions, really just understanding the marketing mix. Do you see it being a little bit different? And I don't want to put you on the spot, Mr. Ryan, if someone else can answer. Do you see spending your dollars differently this year than last year, or do you see the same distribution of monies and promotion?
I'll take that question. We are pretty much doing somewhat the same, but I think we're spending more money in web marketing than we did in the past. We're trying to work on part of the website for testimonials, and which we're going to try to do on YouTube if we can at some point in time. I think that we did try, and we were going to try to do a broker breakfast again with the brokers. That's probably one of the most important things to get to new businesses. The billboards, obviously, resurfacing. I don't think I can add too much more, but I just want to say that I think web marketing is where we're going to be spending a little more time on.
And that's great, and I would expect that you can drive more eyeballs on based on that web traffic. But I do see the billboards as being a strategic asset. Particularly, I will tell you, my clients, as the healthcare industry has gone through unfortunately some conglomeration and conversion there. As the layoffs are happening, you have more clinical nurses and physicians driving from site to site across these hospital networks, and they've got a wider number of miles that they have to drive. Many of them have remarked of seeing our signs and realizing where we were centrally located. So I can testify that on the university and the healthcare silos, particularly in our business, people are seeing them and they're noticing them and they're connecting the dots. So I do think that there is some strategic asset to continuing that particular strategy and that tactic. Particularly with DOT, I think the roving pothole repairs have helped us in that, and trapping people right on 91. I think it's helped us to our advantage. So I think that in concert with 91's traffic studies, keep them planted right on 91, and I think it's helping us. So I can see that being a very good asset to continue on that. You mentioned the website. Do you continue looking across the particular web channels? Are you looking at more expos or any conferences that would help drive that? I don't see a lot in the transportation reimbursement. I don't know if there's any other line item that I'm not seeing. I don't know if that's even a strategy you do a lot of. So more of my education.
Let me give you the answer to where do we fund our trade show participation. It actually is in the marketing line item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? And this coming year, we'll be doing the list that we will key off of will be the ones that Rex looks to do, all right? But that will include things like the MD&M, which is a medical device manufacturing, okay, one. This past year, I went to the one in Philadelphia. In the past, I think the one coming up is in Boston this year. We largely work in the Eastern Seaboard, and haven't gone beyond that in terms of national or international real estate trade shows or other kinds of trade shows.
The field is wide open.
But it's,
Yep.
yeah.
Thank you. Again,
Councilor Mansfield, I wanted to just say one other thing with respect to the billboards. I think the take on the billboards is, you may be right that maybe it's not going to get a business person in there, but it's allowing us to market our town and give people an impression of what is in our town. And one of our focuses has always been, okay, what are the bullet points for somebody to come here? And Mr. Gingras and myself and Don and Tim are working towards trying to maximize what is good about our time, the education, the schools, the school system, just trying to lose my thought here, but basically we're trying to make people understand that it's not just the, lose my thought here, sorry.
no, Mr. Collette, I think you're right. I think during the storms, those FEMA disasters, I did not lose one day of business.
Right.
Not one. During a time when my clients were out of business for weeks, if not months, their quarters took a hit between the blizzard, between the hurricane, between the cleanup, between the aftermath. That sustainability, that durability is absolutely what we have to market.
Right.
And people remember the lights. I don't care what piece of information you throw on a marketing brochure, but when the lights went out and my clients could not make a dime, they came to Wallingford because we had lights. They charged their stations. I opened up a client VIP center for them right here in Wallingford. That's absolutely the dot everybody connects to, and those billboards remind people, that's right, the lights. And at those lines down Route 5 for gas, at Dunkin' Donuts for charging, at my house, at my business, that's what people remembered. And those dots help them connect. And not that we make any light of the tragedies that went on and those horrifying circumstances for people, but we were a bastion of stability. And that is absolutely one of those assets we cannot afford to turn the lights off on. I'm sorry.
Well, just two quick points, if I may. Tom and Mark more than once have told us it's not only the rates, but it's the 97% dependability.
Yes.
And that means something, and that sells the businesses. Also, I'd like to put it at rest as far as our budget goes. Yes, the mayor's very engaged when it comes to fiscal responsibility. However, if we went to him with a project that we needed funded, that made sense for the town, I know we won't have a problem. We will be back at some time for more money. But right now, we're working on a budget that we all agree is what we need at this stage. Yeah, we would like to have more money, but we're more surgeons than duck hunters. We're not out there with the shotguns. So basically, that's where we are with the budget. And yes, keep that thought, and we'll be back for it. But right now, it's a budget we're working on. And just so you know, not only are we working with the internet, that's a little bit cheaper, and as you say, more eyeballs all across it. We're working with planning and zoning on some other areas in town to increase the income rate from commercial properties. And I think we'll see some changes in the next 6 or 7 months. So it's basically, if you would, in any business, an add-on, rather than come out with a new product while you have them in the store. Why don't you take 2 of these home with you? So that's basically what we're working on. That'll increase the town's budget without increasing our expenses.
Thank you. Counselor Fishbein, do you have some follow-up?
Yeah, I just, not to pound the billboard thing, but there's such thing as passive advertising and aggressive advertising. When you put a billboard on 91, there's approximately 1,000, 1,200 people that are going to see that billboard on a daily basis. What percentage of those people do you think are even conceptually thinking of moving their business to Wallingford? Maybe about 1%. It's a very, very small percentage. You're saying to them, here's our sign, we want to invite you in, but half of the people that are seeing your advertising aren't even looking for that product. As opposed to taking that $10,000 and sending Tim to 5 marketing things where people are actually looking to relocate. All of the people that he comes into contact are people that are in business and possibly looking to relocate to your town. When you advertise, to Councilor Sullivan's comment, when I advertise my campaign in a billboard, I know that like 80% of the people that are seeing that in town are my customer. They are voting. That's the reason why you do that. But putting a billboard on 91, if your intent is to build economic development, is just, you're not meeting your target audience. The billboard doesn't tell you from that last storm, we didn't have, we were the only one with power, everybody was coming to us. That billboard does not convey that message. None of those billboards convey that message. For all we know, Power is the local softball team. That's it. But Tim, going to some trade show, can tell people that. Can get if that's your message. And I don't want to beat the dead horse,
No,
but that's
could
the marketing.
Could I just address that for 1 minute?
Sure.
And I agree with you, and that may be a better way, but right now we have a strategic plan. And as I said earlier, we've grown in the recession time. So our plan is working. And right now our plan is to use a billboard with the internet, et cetera. Now, a year from now, we may look at things with Tim's fresh eyes and see, you know what Councilman Fishbein says makes more sense than these billboards. But right now, it's part of a strategic plan. And as in any business, you just can't throw away a business plan until you've exhausted it. And right now, we're in year 2, I think, Tim, of your plan, Tom?
Yes.
Yeah, we got another year to go. We have to see it through. And again, it's been successful. And I understand not everybody driving down 91 is looking to relocate, but everybody that's driving down 91 that has a key position in a business is looking to reduce their expenses and increase their business's dependability. And I don't know what the percentage of those are going to be saying, hey, wait a minute, I saw that sign. I don't know.
I respect the opinion of the commission. I know all you guys, and I just letting you know how I feel in my opinion. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions from councilors for the EDC?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just address the budget issue that I brought up earlier. I want to make certain that this is not misinterpreted, but when I had made mention of the fact that we budget frugally, that was a compliment. And I said, subsequent to that, that we need to be deliberate, we need to be purposeful. So as we are going down the road, if we need more money, I know that I can go to the commission. I know Don, I can support, they would support spending more money so long as we had a plan in place and we had some expected result. So I want to make sure that that is not misinterpreted, and I sense maybe it was. But anyway, I respect the fact as a taxpayer that we budget as frugally as we do. And if we come before the commission and come before the council and say, we've got an initiative that we really like to launch and it's not in our budget and we'd appreciate your consideration, I sense that we'd get that support and I appreciate that.
Sure. You've got the attention of Councilor Parisi.
Actually, what I wanted to say was that it's refreshing to have you people come in. You're always very low-key. I think you put your head down, you go to work with what you're given. I know you all very well. Never heard anybody, even out of school, make a complaint about the budget and how much money you get. What you get, you work with. And I think that's very commendable. And, you know, when you talk about leading by example, I wish some other departments would pay attention to what you guys do. Okay? I appreciate it very much, and I want to thank you for what you do and the way that you do it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. With that, thank you to all of you for your presentation, for your time, for your patience with us.
Thank you all.
Up next, program planning. Mr. Rowe, I guess you're not moving.
So I gather.
Do you have introductory remarks for us?
Actually, no, but I'd be happy. You know, as you know, most of you are aware, our office has responsibilities that range from preparation of municipal grants to economic development to special projects such as Adopt a Road, Hasways Central, other environmental initiatives, the resource coordinator's position is in our office. Anyhow, that's the budget is, or our staff is one full-time person and 2 part-time and a high school kid.
A high school kid?
A high school person. Excuse me.
What does that person do?
They handle the central service operation, our posting operation. First thing they do when they come in is actually handle the mail for the day, all right? They provide a variety of services to other departments, including the town council. You might not be aware of it, but on times, you know, we'll get assistance. Sandy will get assistance from her in terms of preparing packets, assembling, distribution.
Okay. Thank you. Questions for Mr. Rowe? Councilor Fishbein?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don, the Internet Consult, what is that?
We utilize a consultant to do maintenance on the town website that is beyond what our abilities are in our content management system. All right,
Okay.
so when we're looking to change some of the, you know, we have some control over some of the navigation, but, you know, on the home page, for instance, this past year, we added something to the home page for the discount prescription card. We added a button there. That was not something that we could do. That, you know, I don't have the training, all right? You know, we just are not able to do that. We use a company to do that.
Are they the ones, because when I go into minutes for like the council, the dates are all jumbled up. Are they the ones that would be fixing that? The dates are not in chronological order. They've never been.
Is that right? No, we actually do, we enter all the minutes and agendas, okay? That's content that we manage, so I don't know, I'd have to look at it and see.
Okay, if you could
Generally,
just make a
they
note
are
about
in
that.
chronological order.
Yeah, I don't want to spend money if we don't have to, but I get complaints all the time about that. So, thank you. That's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions from counselors? Mr. Rowe, I think you're all set. Up next is Youth and Social Services. Good evening, Mr. Turner. If you could, for the record, remind us who you are.
Good evening. My name is Craig Turner. I'm the Director of Youth and Social Services for the town of Wallingford. For the sake of the more newly elected people that I haven't met necessarily or talked much with, there are a couple things that I would just mention to start off. The budget that you see and the dollars that the town puts into that budget represent a significant part of our operating capital, but not all of it. We work pretty aggressively to keep that budget stable, and it has remained stable throughout the years, and we augment it with a number of grants and other funding sources that we pursue aggressively. The town, through a number of agencies, both civic groups, private individuals, and other large donors, have really stepped up, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, and have helped us immensely to keep our budget where it's at, and yet still be able to expand into some areas that we've identified most recently as being fairly significant for the health and well-being of children and families in particular. So with that, I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Turner? Councilor Fishbein.
Good evening, Craig. Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the telephone line, and I would think that, that's become pretty stagnant over the last few years. You requested $2,600, but the mayor cut that by $500. How is that doable?
Well, if you took our average expense, we have 3 pieces to that bill: the monthly bill, the common charge, and then the internet piece for our office, which allows us to do the Operation Fuel program with the state. That's $80, $50, and $30 respectively. It's $160 a month, which is about a total of about $19, $20, I think, for the course of the year. So the 21 keeps us at that level. The buffer that we've put in there in the past has been if we've had to call in any work to be done on the lines, or the purchase of a phone that dies, is dropped, needs to be repaired. We have not had to do that very often over the course of the 15 years I've been here. Those are expensive pieces when they come into play. You're talking, a minimum of $150 to $200 just to get somebody in the door to look at the lines. The phones themselves are fairly expensive for the work that they do for us. So can we pay our bills? We can pay our bills, but if we have any additional issues, we would be cutting it very close.
Looking at the half year, it appears that it's been expended against this line $1,108, and if that's half a year, the other half a year would put you at $2,216.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's necessarily 6 months. It could very well be a 7-month total in terms of how we're processing the bills.
Oh, it is 7 months.
It could
You're going
be.
to come in just under.
Yep.
Okay. The community grants line, and I think we talked about this last year.
Yep.
That's an appropriation to your department, and then you just determine how it's going to be spent.
It's determined, well, there's one piece that is managed directly by our department without any additional input, and that's the donation that goes to the dry dock, which last year was $10,000. The remaining 14.5 is community grants that historically has been overseen by the Wallingford Board for Youth, which is the advisory group within the community. to our department and the mayor on youth issues. And we have a finance committee which reviews applications that we have that come in during the spring. We're actually in that process right now of accepting them for programs and services that those agencies provide to the community that the Board for Youth feels enhances the delivery of mental health, wellness, prevention, education programs for children and families in the community.
But the expending of funds from that account never comes before us.
It comes before you now. So you approve it or you disapprove of the number that's in there, but once it's approved, then the organizations that get the money, they give us a quarterly report, we distribute the money quarterly based on their fulfilling the obligations that they said they were going to do, and that's how we've been doing it all along.
And when are those grants given out?
They are awarded in April and May.
So is it?
Well, they're awarded in May, generally speaking. We get the applications in April, we go through the process in April for determining who gets the money, and then the announcements are made in May.
So is it fair to say that the money was appropriated last year for those grants has not been appropriated from this year's budget, the budget that we're presently in?
No, that's not true.
Okay.
We go through the process with the anticipation of the money being appropriated now for next year. If you were to cut that out, we would have to notify those people that there was no funding. It's based on the council approving the budget.
Okay, my question, last year, about this time, we met, and we appropriated $24,500.
Correct.
Of the $24,500 that was put into an account for distribution, there was $10,000 for dry dock, and there was $14,500 for this
Correct.
grant program.
Yep.
Has the $14,500 been addressed in total?
No.
Okay,
We have some left over that was not awarded.
okay. Was the whole $14,500 appropriated and is encumbered in effect?
Yes.
Okay, so now, the dry dock aspect of this, last year we talked about that an application was going to be put in and that they were going to be part of the application process
Correct.
for a grant.
Correct. The process was the same in terms of the application process to our department. However, that money was appropriated specifically for them, so they did not have to have their grant approved by the board. It was now up to our department to oversee how that money was spent. It was just put into that account because that's the placeholder for that type of funding coming into our office.
Okay, and is that the procedure that's being followed this year again?
Yes,
Okay.
only for the dry dock, because that was specifically given for the dry dock. The rest of the money is given as a lump sum for communities' grants, so any agency can apply. That $10,000 was restricted only to be used for the dry dock.
Yeah, so if you had $25,000 worth of requests against the $14,500, you obviously wouldn't be able to fulfill those, whereas if Dry Dock showed a need through their grant for $10,000, that money is available.
Yes, and we always exceed the figure of requests by the community for the 14.5.
Yeah, I'm on the grants for Rotary, and I know.
Right.
We have that every year. Okay, and I guess, Mayor, through your budget, that's what's anticipated this year instead of just creating a line item for Dry Dock?
I think the intention was to oversee the programs. Greg and the committee can review what they think is working well, what isn't, and there's a way of directing the funds that would not be the case if it's just an outright grant. I think Craig has something to say with regard to that. Why don't you go ahead?
Great. So with the caveat of the dry dock, last year you may recall that my initial recommendation was for $2,500, and the council, members of the council, actually proposed that the number be bumped up to $10,000 based on the work that they have been doing in the community, and the council voted that in. This year, the dry dock has come back asking for $15,900. That money, the additional money, was not approved as a separate part of of it increasing their specific award. So what we're looking to do is take a portion of the community grants and move that up to the dry dock, which would reduce the amount of dollars that are available to the community grant pool. And then to pull a couple of $2,000 from another line item, which I think I should probably go into now. There was an error in the budget to begin with, and I should have mentioned this in the beginning in my introductory remarks. In the personnel side, I actually only have 9 positions for next year and not 10. The 10th position was exclusive for last year on the basis of someone who was on maternity leave and I needed someone to replace them. That budget item totals $9,000. So my personnel line on the part-time temporary wage is actually reduced by $9,000. And what I am proposing to do is to take $2,000 from that $9,000 and apply it towards the dry dock. So in essence, I'm actually asking for $26,500 to be put into the community grant line this year as opposed to $24,500.
But you're also saying that the 14.5 that we were talking about before, that's available to other entities, is not going to be there.
It would be reduced, and that's on the basis of what we've seen in the pot of money after we've gone through the grants that are awarded. We have dollars left over almost virtually every year, and I think that it's reasonable to take another $2,000 out of that, so the total would then be $14,000 as opposed to $10,000 for the dry dock. I think that's reasonable.
And then maybe I lost you there. And leaving how much for everyone else?
12.5.
And how do I, when you just got through telling us that you get in applications that exceed the 14.5?
Yep.
How am I to justify this?
A lot of the applications really don't fill either a gap or a program that we feel necessarily benefits the community and that they couldn't find other funds to do within their own operating budget.
Okay, and then I guess back to the mayor, I was sort of on a roll there. Why, Mayor, is it anticipated in your budget that dry dock is treated differently than Masters Manna?
Because I think it's helpful to have a review of programs by a department. Otherwise, there's no tracking, how money is used or whether there should be more or less in a subsequent year. So, I think it's helpful. Mr. Turner's department is very much involved in the assistance of people in need for a variety of reasons, and to coordinate that effort through the department is opportune.
My question is, we have two entities that represent that they help people in need, Dry Dock, Masters Manna. Dry Dock is made to go through hoops with Mr. Turner and to show need and his oversight, and I'm all for oversight, believe me. Masters Manna is given a check, good luck, have a good time. Why are they treated differently?
Well, I think they're very different. They're very different programs. I don't see them as exactly the same type of program. Masters Manna is very much as in the model of what the Red Cross was doing, which is why it appears on that page. The Red Cross no longer provides that service. So Masters Manna is in that slot on the social service contribution. It's an organization that provides food, clothing, primarily, and a variety of other things, but primarily it's distribution of food and clothing and maybe some other, and it had been transportation, but now transportation I don't think is part of it. I don't think that's the same type of programming that Dry Dock and other organizations are offering, but I certainly haven't had a discussion with Mr. Turner about whether there would be a benefit to us in overseeing the programming at Masters Manna. I mean, it might be advantageous, and I don't know. It seems to me that you'd have to be there on a daily basis to be able to get any sense of what the needs are at Masters Manor. So I could have that conversation with them, but again, Masters Manor filled the vacancy created by the Red Cross no longer performing the service.
I thank you. I just think that we have a duty to our taxpayers to have some level of oversight. And, you know, we put this into place with Dry Dock. I don't see why other entities.
So just so you're aware, and I think it's a fair point, my office and me in particular, I interact with the Dry Dock on a regular basis. I'm down there on a fairly regular basis and receive their data, their monthly data reports. I've asked for those just to have a sense of what's going on. So I do see what they're doing, but you're correct in saying that I don't have any role in the oversight of that. And as the mayor indicated, it may be something that we want to look at. I'm sure that my conversation with Cheryl in the past, I don't think she would have any issues with that at all.
That's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from councilors? Councilor Mansfield?
Thank you. Mr. Turner, good evening.
Good evening.
Can you just, we heard from Board of Ed that there are over 1,000 children receiving free and reduced lunch now. It indicates that the economic stressors are still there for many Wallingford families. I see your group as being a safety net. Can you comment on what your caseloads now look like, given I can see that you're spending more on mental health services? Can you comment on what strain or perhaps increases you're seeing on that side?
It's a compelling question. It's not an easy question to answer in a few words at this meeting because of what I would consider to be the perilous times and in some ways the depth of despair that a lot of families and kids are experiencing, not just in Wallingford, but certainly that's the population we're most aware of. Significant increase in what I would call trauma-related symptoms for children, and I can't tell you what that's related to as a precursor, whether it was Newtown or the news or parents responding to Newtown and the news, but we're seeing that in young children, younger children all the time. There's an increase in a phobia about attending school as young as elementary school, which for us is kind of a new domain for us to deal with. That's not uncommon for kids in middle school and to some degree in high school, but these are kids that legitimately are just refusing to go to school, and unless their parents pick them up physically, put them in the car, take them out of the car physically, and escort them into the school, they're not going. And once a kid hits middle school, that's a challenge because they can fight back, and they are. So that's one domain, and part of that has come out as a direct result of our involvement in the education's department looking at chronic absenteeism and what's causing chronic absenteeism, and that's a fundamental issue that we've been introduced to. Safe housing is a major issue. It is not an issue that we have any real dollars for, and in fact, there are very few dollars within the state to respond to that. There is some foreclosure prevention dollars, but apart from that, that's a perilous issue. We get requests every week for assistance with housing, whether it's an eviction or a foreclosure or just the need to have housing, and we are not able to meet that need ever.
I'm sorry, Mr. Turner, how many homeless students do we have, or homeless families could you guesstimate at this point?
I wouldn't even want to guesstimate because it would be too low. Okay. I know that that's kind of a hidden population, and that would not be a population that we would necessarily see on a regular basis. Masters Manor would probably be a better compass for that question. We have seen some. There's no question about that. I would say actively, probably in the last 6 months, we've seen one a month that we've dealt with, that we know of. Many call and we refer that we don't see, and it's hard to know if they're homeless or imminently homeless, or if it's an imminent eviction or foreclosure. I have been in contact off and on with the town clerk because she's handling those list pendings for foreclosures, and we know that those have definitely went up significantly in the fall. And I'm not sure if they've sued the Savage Beast. I know that the housing market is kind of taking a turn for the better at this point, and that may be coming down. I am not convinced that the employment issue has shifted at all for the population that we deal with, because they're difficult to employ for a number of issues. Could be mental health issues, could be physical disability, and a lot of those people may have had jobs, were let go, and now are going to find it a very difficult challenge to get a spot in the market today. It's just, it's not as, those jobs aren't as available, and the demand for employees en masse just isn't there. The largest issues that we face on a regular basis is energy assistance, utility assistance. Those numbers are up significantly this year. I can give you some figures on those issues. Just to give you a sense of where the dollars that we use for that, and this is from July 13th through February. The mayor's fuel crisis, we've spent $18,000 on 56 households. Operation Fuel, which is a private organization that allots money to the town of Wallingford for the winter season, that was $10,000. We exhausted nearly all of that for 20 households that were unduplicated, 41 individuals, and 18 vulnerable households, which means elderly or disabled or with children. The Wallingford Electric Assistance Program, the Public Utilities Commission grants us the privilege of working with a fund that they provide through their dollars, $46,400 per year. As of February 28th, we had spent $32,435. 124 households are assisted per month. Nearly all of those are vulnerable households, elderly, disabled, and children. Salvation Army funds, we've spent $8,000, 39 households, 26 families, 109 individuals. That's for food assistance, energy assistance, and some rental assistance. One of the compelling issues that we've seen this year is an increase in request for food. You know, when people are coming to you for food, you've got a lot of problems in that household. If you're not meeting your basic needs, and food is the one thing that you're coming to, that means pretty much everything else is going by the wayside as well. And I would say well over, we've probably seen twice as many in that category this year as we traditionally see. And again, I think Masters Manning could probably speak to that. We have a separate client assistance fund, which is available for a variety of different programs through donations that people give us. The Rotary Club actually contributed to that fund this year for additional fuel assistance, as well as a couple private businesses, which really helped us out. 23 households, food assistance, energy assistance, purchase of beds, gift certificates for food, a roof repair, car repairs, things of that nature, 23 households. The Lions Club and the Rotary Club combined to serve 50 baskets of food at Thanksgiving. We had 375 families representing 1,300 individuals for the Holiday Forgiving program this year. We have an Adopt a Family program which we run with businesses in the community who actually adopt a vulnerable household. We had 30 families participate in that. And then we have some scholarship money through Park and Rec and through our office with a very generous private donor that raises money for scholarships for rec programs and summer camps. And we've served, I believe, 36 students in that fund this year. Unmet needs, rental assistance, eviction prevention, we can refer, but the challenge there is that in order to get assistance, you have to be able to show that you can sustain an income. To put you in housing, you've got to be able to keep it going, so it's almost a catch-22. Majority of the calls that we get are from people that have no income. We do refer them to the Columbus House. There's a rapid rehousing program if they are homeless, but they have to have some sustainable income source. House repairs were on the increase this year. Major house repairs, roofs in particular, ramps for disabled people, handicapped individuals, and then we've seen an increase for dental and medical requests as well. So that's kind of an overview of that particular piece. These are perilous times. from the side of mental health and wellness, healthy family development, and it's really caused us, and it's caused me in particular to kind of step back and take a look at our two largest pots of money that come through the town, and perhaps narrow the focus of what we're doing with those dollars to really address some of these more critical issues. The funding that we get from other sources allows us to go outside of those critical issues and still serious issues, prescription drug abuse, and getting people to understand how to effectively take medication and get rid of medication and not take medication, things of that nature. Most of you know, I know that Chairman Cervoni attempted to recognize Wayne Barnesher earlier this year for his work through Trail of Terror and the donations that he's provided to the community, substantive donations to try to work with some of our more at-risk families. And that number is ever increasing. I can imagine that attorneys dealing with families in court are seeing that all the time. And if you have children, I'm sure you're seeing it. And if I could say one thing in 10 seconds to help kids live better lives in their house, I would tell every parent to take whatever computers they have that are connected to the internet and put them in a public space so they can observe everything that's going on all the time their kids are on it. That would be a great starting place.
Thank you. Any other questions from councilors? Councilor Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Craig, during the year, periodically, you get donations. And where do those donations go?
Well, they come to you to be appropriated, and then they go into a fund in our office.
Okay, so where, does that offset something in the budget?
It augments it. It does not offset it. It's a separate, it's not part of the budget, so it's not reflected here because we don't budget for it. We just pursue them, and we create a line item through our revolving account for each individual donation that we have. For example, the $10,000 that came from Trail of Terror for the coalition is in our revolving account, and it's marked as such for the coalition. We received a grant from the AMA to do prescription drug awareness in the amount of $8,000. You appropriated that. That goes in to the same revolving account, but in our ledger, it's listed specifically as $8,000 for the AMA grant.
Okay, so what is the revolving account used for?
Well, it's used for any money that we don't have to spend within the fiscal year. It allows us to carry it over. It could be a number of things. The money that we get for Project Graduation goes into that account. The money that we get from On the Team for the scholarships for kids goes into that account.
So the Project Graduation, the money that comes in, they run a fundraiser.
Correct.
And the money comes to you from the fundraiser,
Correct.
say $500.
Yep.
That $500, in my hypothetical, is not used to enhance the Project Graduation event.
Well,
how is it used?
I suppose all depends on how you define enhance. Project Graduation, the initial funding and the only funding that the town provides for Project Graduation is from a state grant. It's not from my budget, it's from the tax dollars from the town. So we give them seed money of $2,000 to $2,500 a year, and they raise the rest. So it's not an enhancement. Without those money being raised, that program does not exist.
No, I know, but it just seems like somebody's making money on this deal, because let's just say that the budget for Project Graduation is $5,000, the grant from the state is $3,500, and their fundraiser raises $2,000. Okay. Well, they don't need all that money.
Oh, they need every penny and more.
No, because based upon the numbers I just gave you, they're over budget. They took in more money than they need.
It would roll over to the next year. We've never taken in more money than we need for that program. It's never happened. We spent $18,000 last year.
Yeah, that's the total cost of Project Graduation typically is what, Craig?
Last year was $18,000 without the inclusion of the $4,000 grant that the Board of Ed gives us for.
No, I know, and I was just throwing out hypotheticals to use
So
round numbers.
hypothetically, if
It's
we
still not
raised
showing
more
you.
money than we needed, it would roll over to the next year.
So all of the projects that are in the revolving account are existing running projects?
Oh, absolutely. If they don't, some of those projects, the money has to be spent within a certain timeline. If it's a grant, there's a grant timeline. We have to spend it by the grant. If it's not a grant timeline and we have the perfect example would be the Young Astronauts Club STEM Academy Family Science Nights. That's been going on since the second year I came here, 13 years. That's how our revolving account actually started, because of that program. Because if we don't have a revolving account, we have to spend all the money that year, that budget year, and we don't want to do that.
Have to spend all the money where?
The year that we raise it on that program. The
Okay.
year that we raise it, we would have to spend it.
So somebody makes a general donation to Youth and Social Services.
Okay.
You have to earmark it for one of these projects?
If it doesn't go to, if they don't earmark it, it goes to our client assistance. That's where we chose to put it. If they give us money and say, put this where you want to put it, we almost always put it in client assistance, because that's the one fund that we have kind of the least amount of money in the revolving account and the greatest demand.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly. Any other questions from counselors? Thank you, Mr. Turner.
Before I leave, I just want to point out, I did bring a guest of sorts. Kimberly Stein is sitting behind me, and she is the newly hired, as of December, social service caseworker. So a lot of the figures that I gave you on the programs that we've been operating and the needs that we're meeting have come directly from the work that she does, and I just wanted you to have the chance to meet her. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to Wallingford. Up next, Mr. Hanley, Government Television.
Good evening.
Please remind us who you are.
The man behind the curtain, Scott Hanley, manager of Government Access Television.
All right.
I do have a couple of comments to start, if I may.
Please.
Just as Mr. Turner indicated, I want to note, and Mr. Rowe, want to note that we have a staff of one full-time person and 5 part-timers. You see the technicians here, but I do have 2 production assistants, one who works 19 and a half hours a week, and the second production assistant works 7.5 hours a week, 1 day a week. And that's basically office support, but Deborah Denhart does the interviews in the studio, and you may be familiar with that name and face. The budget, as you see it, is not significantly different than what you've seen in past years. Our part-time line is designed to accommodate meeting coverage primarily and studio coverage. We do some remote production work, not as much as I would like, but that budget line accommodates the part-time staff and, of course, my salary. What probably jumps out in my budget virtually every year is the capital side. And you'll note this year that there was a request of $30,000 for a studio upgrade. And in our conversations with the mayor, we decided perhaps it would be wise to spread that over 2 budget years to try to get that project done. But I should also note that we're somewhat hopeful that in the coming budget year, we'll see the restoration of a state grant fund that actually in 2009 was permitted us to install the cameras in this room, the remote cameras. That fund has been very successful for a lot of access centers, libraries, schools. The Board of Education mentioned they received close to $250,000 in grants from that particular grant fund. Sadly, in last year's budget implementer bill in the legislature, that fund was, all of the money was diverted for 2014 and 2015. So the fund basically stopped. It is our hope, we've been working very hard with local legislators, and in fact, I was impressed that Senator Fasano, Representative Candelora, and Representative Mashinsky all submitted bills to try to restore this fund. And it's gotten some traction, although as you might imagine, as we near the end of the session, things can get lost and misdirected. So we're still somewhat hopeful that money will be restored, at least for the 2015 fiscal year. But basically what that would do for us is permit us to apply for that second year amount of money, the $15,000 that would be budgeted in the second year, to move the project forward. So if you have any opportunity to speak to any of the legislators, any of our contingent in Hartford, please remind them that this is called the PEGpedia Fund, and that legislation should be supported. The other capital you see here is fairly typical replacement for computers, hard drive systems, things of that nature, and just basically replacement cycle. That's about all I have at this moment.
So has the FCC been on you about changing your frequencies again, or have we managed to avoid that for a little
Well, we do have, actually this year we are buying a second wireless mic system, but that's in flux actually. It's funny you should mention that, because it is always a challenge to keep track of what they're doing with the frequencies and how they're being allocated. Right now I think we're okay with our wireless mic system, and the one we'll be purchasing, and hopefully we won't see any erosion in the spectrum we're permitted to use. It's not a lot of money, $600 for a mic system, but still, you don't want to have to throw them away.
Right. It's a little frustrating if they're still functional and somebody changed your radio station without your consent.
Exactly.
Yep. Questions from councilors? Councilor Fishbein.
Good evening, Scott. Is it intended that with the $15,000, should we approve that you're going to purchase some of this stuff in the next year, or are you going to hold it in the account and then do it all at once?
We would plan to hold the funds until we have the total amount.
Now, I believe, and thank you for that list of things that you're anticipating using the money for. There's 3 camcorders that are anticipated. What would you be using those for?
It's interesting you should bring that up, because just this past week, a new camera was released on the market that may replace those in the list of equipment. Those are really placeholders. We're trying to look at improving the studio or upgrading the studio at a fairly low cost. The studio, we do anywhere between 3 and 5 productions a month in the studio. It's not used heavily, perhaps not as much as we would like against staff considerations, the number of meetings we do. So we want to keep the costs down, and by putting lower cost cameras, of course, as you probably know, lower cost cameras can produce a pretty good image these days. And so those are pretty decent cameras that can provide a very good image. And then, as I said, there's some newer cameras on the market about the same price point that can give us more than adequate image, high definition image.
I'm just not aware. What do you currently use camcorders for? A camcorder, those are not the cameras here.
No, we have 2 matched camcorders that we use for field events. They're also backup. Should anything happen to the system here, we can come in with the 2 cameras and document a meeting. And fortunately, with our editing system, our software, we can take the 2 camera recordings and match them. It's called multicam editing, and come up with a good product. We've been doing some things at the library over the past few months with 2 cameras, and they're matched cameras. It makes it easier to get a good-looking image, and they're high definition. Not that we can telecast in high definition, but
No, and that was another one of my questions. I mean, are we going for the top, and then if we get to that technology, it'll be there?
there is virtually no standard definition equipment out there now being sold. So even low-end equipment is high definition, and we just down convert for telecast, and that's what we do. The video can be, when we deliver video on a DVD or in file format, we can deliver a high definition image. But certainly on the cable channels, the AT&T and Comcast, they haven't given us that capability.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions from councilors? Councilor Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, Scott, welcome. Scott, tell me about the live stream, live production switcher.
That switcher is was put in there basically because of its capability. It has virtually every function you would want at this point in time. It's a high-definition switcher. It also gives you a character generator built in, but it also gives you that capability to stream if you choose to. So it's again, it's sort of future-proof. It's not to say that any piece of equipment in this realm is future-proof, but it changes so readily, but that's basically its capability.
Does this have the ability to compress and send right across an internet connection?
Yeah, it's you would just basically buy time, through a service for streaming,
Right.
and it would deliver it. There are a lot of products out there right now that do the same thing. This one happens to be an integrated package that does a variety of things. So it's one box that gives you a lot of features.
Is this for your studio here or Fairfield Boulevard?
That's really in that list for the studio at Fairfield Boulevard. Something similar could be put in place here at some time. In fact, that's I'm always looking ahead as to the cycle of the equipment, and we're looking at in the coming years replacing the server, which is already 5 years old, and the equipment here, believe it or not, is about 5 years old. So I'm already looking beyond this year to maybe 2 years out when we may have to replace some of the equipment you see here.
Do we have any plans down the road to go back to video streaming some of these meetings?
We've talked about it. It hasn't moved forward at this point in time. We've looked at a few options, but it hasn't moved forward at this time.
Now, did you want to address that or no? Just adjusting the mic. I wanted to give you an opportunity if you had something. Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. A lot of people have asked for that, I know. I mean, I can't watch the broadcasts. I do get a DVD, though, so I'm not complaining. I have direct television. That's all I have. I think, by and large, you do a tremendous job. We always hear great accolades on the broadcast quality coming out of Town Hall or in your production studio shoots, so good job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Laffin?
Thank you. The equipment that you're looking to buy this year, next year, and the live streaming or the online stuff isn't going forward right now. Is anything that we're buying now going to get in the way of that in the future, or will everything be compatible with that when we need to change servers or when we decide to go online in a year or 2 or 3 or whatever?
Well, I'm very cautious about that, and always looking to buy something that has capability I think that will carry us through 3 to 5 years. But as you know, things change rapidly.
Right.
We just had a lot of equipment introduced in Las Vegas at NAB, some brand new things. Some of the things we anticipated, some we didn't. And some of that filters down to our low-budget operation, so it has an impact. But certainly, when I put something in the budget, it's designed to look ahead, and hopefully we won't get caught with something. And that's why I tend to use, I try to use computers or something that relies on a computer as the foundation for the operation. And it's not a black box that will basically become obsolete within a couple of years.
Right.
And that's the nice thing about streaming and about a lot of recording is that you do encoding through computers, and providing you have a good quality computer that's fairly fast and up to date. And that's why you see some computers replaced on a regular cycle in our operation. They have to have the processing power, and they also have to be able to handle the latest software. But then the peripherals are the ones that you add, and hopefully they're not too expensive. The live stream box that you see in that list was just really kind of a suggestion that there are products out there that do a lot of things, and they're wonderful products. And sometimes it's easier to buy a single product that has those features that can be upgraded with software upgrades, as opposed to having to upgrade the entire thing, the entire hardware package. So that's one of the reasons that's there. They're pretty good about doing software updates.
Do we run the risk, so we're going to buy everything in year 2, mostly you had said, correct?
That's the way we have it planned, unless, of course, we're able to secure a grant before that time.
So with live streaming, is it not going to end up, 2.0 or whatever is not going to come out, and it's going to be 150% of the old cost and throw you off too much, or?
Well, I think fortunately that particular company, a lot of their updates are software-based.
Okay.
And even the switcher we have in the back room, its capabilities, it's a digital switcher, very low end. It only cost us about $2,400, but it's received some software updates which has expanded its capability, some of which we can't use, but it's nice to know that they're capable of doing that.
In the server you mentioned, in answer to Councilor Sullivan's question, you said 1 to 2 years you were going to look to replace that. Are you stretching it at that point, at this point? Or?
Yes, it's a little hard to tell. It's XP-based server. I'm not sure that we can upgrade to Windows 7. If we do, we have to send it to Minnesota for it to be upgraded. That particular manufacturer has a new line of servers that play back high definition and standard definition, and they will automatically take your standard definition and upgrade it to HD, or take your HD and down convert it. In our case, we would have to do that. But that's not an inexpensive item. The server itself would be the $15,000 to $16,000, and our bulletin board system probably would have to be updated as well, and that's another $4,000 to $5,000. So you're talking $20,000 for that upgrade. So I'm not anxious to go there just yet. We'll try to eke a little more time out of the one we have, but I'm certainly aware that it's not going to last forever. And again, the XP support, or lack thereof, I'm not sure what's going to happen with it.
Right. The streaming with, not the streaming, but the AT&T and Comcast, we don't pay for any of that. They provide that as a service, or?
No, we do not pay to have the channel on either AT&T or Comcast. We're a little unsure at this point in time as to should something happen with the equipment we have, our basically transport or telecast equipment that's after the server, basically injects the system in the Comcast into AT&T. We're a little unsure as to whether or not we're going to be obligated to replace that, because the initial expense for AT&T was paid for by AT&T. Okay. Comcast supplied the equipment, but the world has changed a little bit. The cable industry has been deregulated, and we're not sure going forward what the companies will supply in the way of replacement equipment. So all bets are off. I'm a little unsure in that area.
Right. Okay. Okay, that's it for me for now. Thanks.
Any other questions from councilors? Hearing none. Mr. Hanley, you're all set. I
Thank
think
you very
Mr.
much.
Rowe, I think you're all set too, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, inland wetland and water courses.
Good evening.
Good evening. If you could remind us who you are for the record.
Thank you. Erin O'Hare, Environmental Planner.
Thank you. Do you have any introductory remarks for us?
I do not.
Okay. Questions for Ms. O'Hare? Councilor Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Aaron.
Good evening.
Line 56802, purchase services. Can you tell us what that is? Southwest Conservatist?
Yes. That represents the membership dues to be a part of the territory served by the Southwest Conservation District. They work in 43 towns. This represents our membership for the town of Wallingford, and the services they provide are varied. They provide technical review service as requested for the Wetland Commission, but more importantly, they provide a free technical service to residents of Wallingford should they have a stream bank erosion problem, for instance, something like that.
So the membership is not just for the commission, it's for the entire town?
Correct. This is an annual membership, $2,000 every year that I've been here. and it covers, we become a member, and then the residents in Wallingford can avail themselves of this service. The commercial and industrial property owners in Wallingford can too, but there are fees associated with that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Counselor Letourneau?
Good evening. How many people have taken advantage of that program?
For that, you would have to ask, I could get that information from the Southwest Conservation District. They don't report that to me.
Okay, if you could get that for us, I'd
Yes.
appreciate it.
I do refer people quite often. I will refer someone, for instance, let's say there's a homeowner who has a stream, and every year they watch the stream cut the bank closer and closer to a structure, their garage or their house. I would refer them to that organization, which is a quasi-state organization.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the council? None. Conservation Commission.
Going to be joined by the new chairman of the Conservation Commission, Mary Heffernan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the record,
I'm Mary Heffernan, the Chair of the Conservation Commission.
welcome, Ms. Heffernan. Mary, do you have any introductory remarks?
No, not really. I mean, we really have a very simple budget. It's probably about the smallest one in the whole packet.
Don't look at me.
Okay. I'm not allowed to look at Mr. Bose.
All right, while you're not looking at him, you can answer questions from Councilor Fishbein.
Good evening, Mary.
Good evening, Craig.
I'm looking at the Purchase Services Natural Resources line, and thank you for your backup. It's my understanding that you plan to utilize those funds in Fresh Meadows and in conjunction with the open space plan. Where are we on Blazing Trails? Because I know the $6,000, I think it was 4 years ago I was up here, we talked about that. There was a plan to blaze trails. I think that money came out, if I recall correctly.
It's not really blazing trails we're doing over there. We've been trying for several years now to sort of create a space on the west side of town for people like, you know, we have Tyler Mill on this side of town. We would like the people on the west side of town to have an area too. It would be a different sort of area, not a woodsy trails, hike in the woods sort of area, but it's more an open area. We would like to create some soft walking paths for people. We had high hopes of getting a grant to do that. The grant has not come to pass. So we're looking at smaller increments maybe of getting there. This is part of that plan. We keep trying to get rid of a lot of overgrowth over there. Aaron, please jump in at any time.
When you say the grant, you did get a $6,500 grant for the ADA accessible trails.
No,
You did not.
we did not get the grant.
I thought it said that you got that.
No.
It says remaining cost $6,500 was funded from the Open Space Resources Management Fund. So doesn't that,
That's the money we get from the farmland lease program, which goes into a kitty that we can access and Parks and Rec can recess and Public Works can access to do various projects having to do with the open space properties in town. That's a very small amount
Right,
of
so-
money, which is not going to come near doing that project.
this is the first time I've run across this clause. Are you saying that the Open Space Resources Management Fund is our money?
Maybe I should jump in here, if I could answer that, if I may. The Open Space Resources Management Fund is a special fund set up to house the lease monies we get from our 34 farm properties that we rent.
And who maintains that fund? What department?
I don't know.
I think Mr. Bose takes care of that.
And 3 departments have access to the funds, the Conservation Commission, the Public Works Department, and Park and Rec. And through requests that are authorized by the mayor. So periodically, regarding management of our various open space properties, we might need a physical improvement, such as a gate, such as a tree being removed, something like that, and we would access it through this. These funds would be used to do that. In this case, what you're referring to is in the supplemental narrative that went out with the budget. That goes back, that money was used on the Fresh Meadows open space property, which was the former Galco property. We used $6,000, which was in the Conservation Commission budget, under the purchase of natural services for a contractor to eradicate invasive species, multiflora rose, Japanese knotweed, that kind of thing, out in the meadows out there. And then we also used, for this, our current fiscal year, we used $6,000 plus the $6,500 for the Open Space Management Fund. So that's together, that's $12,500 to retain a engineering company, Leonard Engineering, to complete the survey and design of 3 trails out at the Fresh Meadows property.
Those are the ADA accessible trails that
Yes.
you're referring to in your backup. Okay. So, Mr. Bose, I've never seen this line before. Is there an income or a revenue line for Open Space Resources Management Fund?
If you look at page 8 of your budget book and special funds, sorry to make you go back and forth, but that's
No,
where
that's
we,
fine.
that's where we
what I'm
budget
here
the special funds. And if you go about halfway down, you'll see Open Space Resource Management Fund.
Okay, the $8,000 is revenue. Do you know what the
Revenue and expenditures, because what we do is we kind of baseline that kind of low, and if the revenues come in higher than that, the commission can come back and, always comes back and asks for the additional appropriation.
Well, other than the leases that we have for certain properties, what other inputs of income would we have to that
That's it.
line? So isn't that a fixed number? Can't we know based upon the lease what the
I
number?
think you just got a donation from somebody.
And sometimes a field won't get leased.
Yeah, so that's sort of the low amount. I don't know how much you'd take in annually from the lease program as a whole, but
Now, is this fund treated like an enterprise fund?
no, it's just, well, I don't know what your definition of an enterprise fund, but
An enterprise fund would be
similar-
that the money goes in, can only be used for specific
That's
sort
correct.
of things.
just the exact same definition as per the conversation with Craig Turner with the special revenue funds for youth and social services. This operates the same way.
Do we know what the balance of this fund is?
I can get that to you, Councilman. I don't have it right now.
That would be helpful.
I
Sure.
actually have that.
Oh, you actually have it? Oh, you're so good.
It was actually printed out today. So the available budget today is $20,573.
Okay, and
It's just because the monies are put in the budget, 8,000 revenue and 8,000 expenditure, it doesn't mean that they have to spend it that year.
no, I'm not, I just,
They might be, they can save it up if they wanted to engage in a, I guess, a larger type of project or adventure or something like that.
who makes that determination? Are they
Oh,
in
no, we
control?
don't,
We
we just
use
do
it-
the accounting.
We use it cautiously. We don't go there unless we really feel a need. And as Aaron said, we need to get permission from the mayor, and we're not the only ones who use it. Public Works uses it, Parks and Recreation uses it.
What does Public Works use it for?
I have no idea.
Well, who's the gatekeeper here?
The mayor.
Yeah, I'm not aware of it being used by Public Works, but
It was used maybe 4 years ago by Public Works for an activity actually out at Fresh Meadows. It was about $900. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head.
Was it the guardrails, perhaps?
No, it was Fresh Meadows.
Fresh Meadows.
Well,
Guardrails.
so it was a project for conservation. They happened to do the work, is that it?
It involved a contractor. I'm sorry, I don't recall.
Well, if it was in Fresh Meadows?
Maybe it was the
Typically, they're not
spraying of-
doing work out in Fresh Meadows.
Maybe it was when they sprayed the butterfly meadow then.
No, it wasn't for spraying.
We don't know.
But
I'd have to get back to
am I to understand that all requests from this fund go through the Conservation Commission or
No.
any department?
Go
And
through
then-
the
but
mayor.
There's some sort of criteria it has to be for the open space properties.
Yeah, this money would be used for Conservation Commission purposes, and typically.
But if it's not going through the Conservation Commission, then, I would
But
think
the
they would be
the request comes from them to use the money for something.
That's not what they're telling me. I just
No.
asked if all of the requests come through the Conservation Commission,
I
and I
think
got
if Mr.
negative.
Gawlak wants to use it, he doesn't have to ask our permission, is my understanding.
That's my understanding. And Henry?
Well, I'm not familiar with any requests other than what I get from
I'll
Conservation.
talk to John and figure out what's going on. But,
All other provisions, by the way, of the charter, purchasing ordinance are still in effect. Just because it's not in the general fund, I mean, things still have to be bid, et cetera, et cetera.
no, I know. When money starts to accumulate in accounts and, they're talking about, problems out at Tyler Mill with people with, four-wheelers and stuff like that, and getting money to stop that kind of activity, which is a conservation activity, and I've got money, around, it's good for me to know this stuff, so, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions from the council? Councilor Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I only have one. Good evening, Aaron, Mary.
Good evening.
We've used the Fresh Meadow term several times. For the people at home watching, let them know where the Fresh Meadow open space is, would you please?
It was formerly the Gulco property. It's over off of Cheshire and Schoolhouse Roads, combination of a couple of farm properties that we purchased many years ago.
Okay.
It's bordered on the north by the Farms Country Club. It's bordered on the west by the town of Cheshire. Not quite. There's maybe 1,000 feet before you get to the town of Cheshire. On that side, it's a 93-acre property. A fair amount of it is comprised of the Fresh Meadow Swamp, hence the name, which is literally a swamp. You cannot walk through it.
Part of that is also Wallingford Land Trust property as well, the swamp.
Is it safe to say this is the location where there was an offering of public skating?
Yes,
Yes, the old skating pond, yes.
Okay. Is it still used for skating?
yes.
It is.
My understanding is that the ice hasn't been thick enough in
But I think there
quite a
have
few
been
years.
people skating
Wow.
out there anyway.
My oil bill would tell you otherwise, that the ice has been plenty thick this year, I'll tell you that. It's been a long, cold winter. But that's all I had. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Any other questions from the council? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All that in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You can stay.